Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, we have a new champion in the UFC middleweight division. However, the fight wasn't necessarily a classic, in my opinion. We'll go over that. Also, guys, should we rename the show Spinning Back Elbow? Holy cow. And then lastly, we'll also preview the upcoming action and kind of put a bow on PFL and the world tournaments that they've been having. All right. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con. Look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. We got Danny Segura down in Miami, the 305, one of the top reporters in the game, always ready to bring it. Nolan King, another top dog in the reporting world. Last year, he was a nominee for the World MMA Awards. He's in Boston. And in the Big D, it's Matt Wells. He's part of our editorial team. He's ready to go. Cold Coffee is off. Goes is stepping in as producer. He's on the ones and twos. But before we get started, if you could kindly hit that like button, you know the drill, the algorithm, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to this show, though, guys. All right, so many fight fans had been looking forward to UFC 319, especially the main event. The card was nice, but the main event, man, this thing was top heavy. It just didn't really deliver in some people's eyes. The wrestlers are out there kind of defending things, but let's kind of get, an overall thought here on the fight. Look, the fans were booing in the arena. There's no way around that. Social media was chirping as well. No one I knew was blown away from the fight either. That doesn't mean Chimaev wasn't dominant. He had zero problems taking down DDP and holding him down, and it was rinse and repeat for 4 rounds and some change, with DDP almost pulling an Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen, and eking out that late submission. Let's get through the reactions. Matt Wells, it's been a while since we've seen you. Let's hear from you first, buddy.
I mean, what can you say about Khamzat Chimaev in this performance, man? It was completely dominant from beginning to end. He made Dricus look like a fighter, much less a champion that didn't even prepare for a title fight, which was insane to me. He had no answers for him, no urgency to get up off the canvas until the very last, literally the last minute of the fight. You're wondering, where was this the rest of the fight, where he was actively reversing and taking top position and trying to get some ground and pound in? The lack of urgency throughout the entire fight was mind-boggling to me. And I know that Khamzat Chimaev is no slouch on the ground. He's an absolute menace on the ground. His wrestling is probably the best in the whole sport right now. But the fact that DDP just was so accepting of everything throughout the entire fight up until the last minute was crazy to me. And it just looked like he didn't prepare like that. I was just sitting there watching this fight. I was like, what is happening right now? What was happening in that corner? And what we saw between rounds was also really questionable as well. There was no urgency. It seemed like the coaches were just looking at each other who had answers. DDP was smiling after every round. I get you're trying to uplift your own spirits, but man, a lot of question marks for me out of that one. But you got to give credit to Khamzat for doing everything he had to do to ensure that he won that title. He could have done more, I think, but it was his crowning moment, man. You can't really be too upset with him. I know a lot of fans were like, oh man, that's not the kind of title fight I wanted to see. I wanted to see a knockout, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to see more ground and pound. Sure. But at the end of the day, his job was to go out there and win that title, and he did that in completely dominating fashion.
Was it more on the masterful and tactical side for you, or was it more boring and a letdown?
No, it was masterful. It was technical. For me, my biggest gripe about the fight for Khamzat's side was that early in the fight, when he got him down in the crucifix, those punches, they were just tapping punches, right? Drive some elbows down, it caused more damage. That was my only gripe with it. I'm not mad at 24 minutes of control time. I'm not mad at that whatsoever. That's on DDP to change that, not on Khamzat. DDP did get a couple of gifts of stand-ups as well, and he didn't do anything with them. So it is what it is.
I was just about to ask that. I'll leave it for Nolan. Nolan, let's get your reaction first. And I was curious, do you think, because going back to masterful and tactical versus boring and a letdown, that even Goddard saw what was happening in round 5, and he started to pick these boys up? Reaction first, and then your thoughts on the referee kind of stepping in towards the end, maybe trying to save this.
Yeah, I'll say like this fight, the performance I think can be masterful, tactical, a letdown and boring all at the same time. I don't think those are necessarily opposites, right? Like I very much recognize what he did was incredible. Like he was dominant. I mean, like when you look at the middleweight division right now, who do you say who isn't going to get wet blanketed by him? I mean, he's that good. On the flip side, I very much understand that people pay money to see something entertaining. And a lot of people don't have like this nuanced eye where they're like, oh, look at Chimaev's handcuff here. That was great. Like, let's watch him lay on him for 3 more rounds. I don't think those things are very much opposed. Like they can go hand in hand. And I think that's what we saw on Saturday. As for Goddard, I know there was a whole crowd of people that were very unhappy with those stand-ups. I think it really comes down to the fact that there is a certain amount of context that a referee can take into their decision making in a fight, right? Like the rules are written in a way that I think it allows the referee a lot of discretion to process what's occurred leading up to a certain sequence where he feels he needs to get involved. So, I'd be interested to hear from Mark if we were able to talk to referees, although he's been fairly transparent compared to some of the others over the years. How much did the fact that it was a repeated same sequence over and over again with nothing really happening, how much did that play into his decision? And then obviously too, like standing somebody up in a fairly dominant position is not something that we see. So I understand both sides of it. I don't necessarily hate it. I think it's an outlier in terms of what we usually see, which is why I think there was maybe more attention on it as well. But ultimately, I mean, he was not doing much with what we saw him on the ground. We saw him in dominant positions, and he was not necessarily doing, looking to advance his position or using strikes to open up Dricus to advance his position. So I understand it. I wasn't outraged by it. I think it's a little bit rare. But ultimately, it was not the most entertaining performance from Khamzat, but it was obviously supremely dominant. And for him, the number one thing that he has to do when he steps in that cage is win. And he did that very handily.
Danny, you had the unenviable task of doing play-by-play, if I'm not mistaken. How was that? All I can tell you is from Goz and I, our side, bro, you could have just looped the 5 minutes we did in round 1 for rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 would have been a little slightly different at the end. How did you see it through your lenses?
So I actually don't mind too much these type of fights when it comes down to play-by-play, because I literally just put like, Khamzat's controlling, nothing's going on. The crowd is, it's not. I hate it when it's like a crazy fight with scrambles that last all, and I'm just like trying to catch up with the typing, and I'm huffing and puffing at the end of the fight. That wasn't the case. So it was very chill as far as the play-by-play. So I appreciate you taking me into consideration, GG. But look, I kind of called it. I don't want to puff my chest too much here, but on the preview show with Farah and Goz, who's behind on the production today, he is witnessed. I said Khamzat Chimaev by decision. I thought he was going to be, in terms of Dricus du Plessis, hard to finish. And in a way, I did expect Khamzat Chimaev to have a more calculated and a little bit more reserved approach, because this was his first 5-round fight in the UFC. And look, if he would have tried to finish Dricus du Plessis in the first and second, there's no guarantee that cardio is going to hold up. We haven't seen it before. So I completely understand him having a more conservative approach. And I expected it. And I didn't think it was that boring. And I also want to cut him some slack. This is not a guy that got to the title being boring, right? He's taking out everybody in the first round, being super exciting. So look, a title fight, dangerous opponent. First time you're going to go like all 5 rounds. Yeah, I don't blame him too much. So all in all, I thought it was a masterful performance. And you do leave with the sense that like this guy's going to be champion for a very long time. I think whatever we saw against du Plessis, he can replicate it against anybody at 185 pounds. Who knows? Maybe even 205. I don't know. I think I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but yeah, just completely dominant. When's the last time you saw a championship fight go 50-44?
Or 50-43 in the case of Matt Wells. He had another 10-8 in there as well. I even saw a 50-41. I'm not feeling that one. But yeah, some of them definitely were teetering on potential 10-8s. So I'm glad all the judges agreed They all had the same score, and I just like it when they're all on the same wavelength just for future fights. Danny, I'm going to stay with you. Were you, well, I guess you kind of already answered. You were impressed with Chimaev, but were you kind of slightly disappointed? Because he also built up this big game, you know, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to mop the floor. Like, there's the entertainment aspect too, right? He kind of controlled him and coasted to a victory. I wouldn't say like he, you know, DDP ain't going to want none anytime soon or anything like that, with the exception of he can't stop the takedown. But, like, in other words, he didn't get like his ass kicked like in the, you know, concussions and like we saw in some of the other fights.
No, I was impressed, and again, I give him a pass here because this is not his DNA. Now, if he were to do this in his next title defenses consistently, then I'm gonna, you know, criticize him and talk some shit. But, like, look, all in all, this was his first title fight. A guy that is notorious for being strong late in the fight, getting late finishes. A guy that's notorious for losing the first, you know, rounds, not looking great, and then coming back and beating his opposition. Khamzat had to be really careful, and we talked about on the preview show how devastating a loss could be for Chimaev. He definitely was a fighter that entered UFC 319 with the most to lose, right? Like, his undefeated weighs so much, and as you mentioned, he's built up this persona that he's unstoppable. This was a must win for Chimaev. If he would have lost, that whole boogeyman persona would have popped. Is he the best trash talker? No, not really. Is he fighting very often? No, not really. It's really this aura that he's created of just being unstoppable. So again, I was very impressed by his performance. Did I enjoy it? No, not fully. But again, I don't think that performance is indicative of who Khamzat Chimaev is.
Nolan, again, there were boos in the arena. You could hear them. I don't necessarily know if the phone lights came out or anything like that. Social media was disappointed. I had a cousin that personally told me he fell asleep. Is all this criticism fair towards Chimaev's performance?
No, probably not. Like Danny said, it's not his overarching game, right? It's not what we've seen. We've seen him go out there and have a barn burner with Gilbert Burns. We've seen him practically, you know, or not practically, he broke, you know, Robert Whittaker's face in half at one point, had to cave in from a submission. So I think it's something that I'm sure his haters will hang over him, as we've always talked about this being a what have you done for me lately sport. But I think within a few title fights, a few defenses, if he's able to get them, I think people will forget. I don't necessarily see this being a repeat thing. I think he honestly answered a lot of questions that I had about him on Saturday when it came to his cardio, you know, how he would do late in the fight. So I don't know. To me, like Danny said, it's his first title fight. Let's see what he does. I don't think that this should erase what he's done leading up to it.
Also, real quick, sorry to intervene, but it takes two to tango. Like, can we also draw some criticism towards Dricus du Plessis? Like, what was he doing to make that fight exciting? When he started doing something and he got that reversal, then the fight got exciting a little bit at the end of round 5. But prior to that, the dude wasn't doing anything. I mean, so why would Khamzat Chimaev want to risk, or why would he want to change things if he's just completely dominating him? Dricus du Plessis, to be honest, didn't do shit in the entire fight until the last, you know, minute of the 5th round.
I agree. Yeah,
bro. If he had pulled that off, he would have ascended into God level for me. I would have been painting a mural of him in my living room. This is just that would have been the most streakiest ending of a fight of all time. But anyways, sorry.
Do you think he should have ground and pounded? He had about 2 minutes left, I think, or did you like him going for that ghillie? Because, you know, obviously that can be a weapon that stops the fight.
I mean, I think in retrospect, I would have ground and pounded, but it's easy for me to say because I know he didn't get the submission. Yeah, it's tough. I'm not really sure. That's a good question.
I want to thank Alex H coming in through a super chat. We'll get him to the front of the line. Khamzat narrative of having bad cardio is dead. Danny did touch on that. So did Nolan. You look, when I was breaking down the fight, I also questioned it. So I got to give him some props. He wasn't exerting a ton of energy, but that's not his fault because DDP didn't, you know, help drain the tank either. Go ahead, Matt. What do you want to say?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because DDP didn't do anything to offer resistance to him. Like, holding somebody down is tough, but it's different when that person actually gets into advantageous positions and actually hits you with punches and kicks and stuff. So, like, he didn't have to deal with any of that. So I still have questions about his cardio.
Okay.
But less questions. Come on. He did fight 25 minutes.
I have less questions, but I still have questions.
Sure. Guys, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but something that I have more questions about than the cardio. I think the cardio thing, like, I'm not saying he's a Cain Velasquez, but I think my biggest concerns in terms of like, dude, this guy can't fight in a fourth, fifth round. Those are gone. But did you guys see more in like a few exchanges, especially in the fifth round, the way he was taking shots? He's got a little bit of that Brock Lesnar "don't punch me" type of
I did see it.
reactions. I don't know if you guys picked that up in the fifth round.
Yeah, because right afterwards,
he
there's
didn't
like
take
this
shots very
panic
well.
to once again wrestle.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen it in other fights. People think he's slightly breaking, but in those two clutch fights that we always named, Usman and Burns, yes, he was tested. Yes, he looked like he tired, but he dig deep. He did dig deep. And then he also came back and won. So I do want to give him credit. But I saw that, Danny. I saw that as well. Yeah. Matt, do you have an opposing view? Or...
No. I think the reason we saw that big of a reaction is because he had such of a big lead. Like, he had no reason to risk. Like I was saying a minute ago, like, why risk exchanging with him? Like, why would I change anything? So, like, when DDP actually got in a spot where he could land a punch, like, why even risk getting clipped by anything? Like, I'm making sure I'm getting out of the way. That's the way I viewed it. So I don't know. I don't know if y'all saw it.
Particularly because
this is something that I picked up. He didn't feel safe on the feet. That's the thing. That's why he panicked. He didn't feel it didn't feel like he was in a safe spot. Okay, let me just coast right here on the feet. I can use the jab and I'm good. It did feel like he felt like he was in danger, which I think is a big difference.
I think we've seen in the past from other fights. Harken back to Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards the first time around, right? You have such a big lead in the fight, and then you opt to decide to stand and trade with the guy, and you see what happens. Everything can be gone in a blink. DDP is that type of guy who's pulled out magic before, right? like that's the reason why he held the title. So I think stuff like that you kind of see as a fighter. Like, if I have such a big lead, I'm going to avoid any type of controversy whatsoever, like any type of risk. When I have 10-8s in the bag, and every other round it has been mine dominantly. I just think it was one of those situations where he was like, nope, not gonna get clipped with something crazy. I'm getting out of here. And then as soon as I see my entry, I'm getting your ass back to the ground.
So maybe good fighter IQ is what he was actually exhibiting at that moment.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it.
All right. Nolan, it sounded like you wanted to chime in earlier.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Let me get some comments here in the chat, and then we'll continue. This is an interesting topic. Big fight. Obviously, Khamzat's a big name. And I think the guys have done a great job of actually propping him up. And I think DDP carries a lot of fault for this fight also sucking. Because I thought the fight sucked, but I thought a lot of it had to do with DDP having no answers. Anshul Jubilee's gas station says that was the most dominant performance in a title fight since Wei Li versus Lemos. Joe Young says Khamzat stalled for live betting scandal. Get keen. No, get real. I doubt that happened. Cayman Ryder said, interesting fact, Khamzat has taken down every single UFC opponent in less than a minute. Yep. Same with Chael Sonnen and GSP, and there's something to that recipe for sure. Heaven Sent says, we're smoking that DDP pack. Steve Williams says, man, I was way off on my prediction of that how that main event would go. Me too, because I thought as the fight went longer that DDP would take over. And yeah, one of the guys said he looked comfortable on the stool, like, I got this. I stopped his main attack. But where were you going to flip the script, DDP? You know, when are you going to start changing things up? You're down possibly 2017, 2018. You know, you got to think about walking away with the strap, and we didn't see that urgency. Mario Madrano says, how delusional is Dricus du Plessis' coach in that interview? I didn't see that interview, so I can't comment. Maybe one of the guys can. But let's keep going with the questions. And if one of you guys saw that interview, perhaps you can answer Mario Madrano's question here. How big of a star can Chimaev be? Let's do this take rather quickly. But what are your thoughts, Matt?
He can be massive, but it's all about, I think, how frequent we see him in the cage more than anything. And obviously have that we'll see him get finishes in, which I think he's capable of doing. Depending on matchups, but yeah, he can be massive. He can be the next biggest star in the whole promotion, I think.
So, like where Islam's at now, he can get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Nolan King, what's his potential?
Huge. I mean, we already seen it. The numbers this week. You know, look at our YouTube numbers. Look at all the numbers that we've seen. I mean, Dana White said their numbers were great. I think he's already there, and with some good rivals and some more title defenses, I think he'll be, you know, he'll be one of the biggest stars in the sport. He already is.
Mm-hmm. Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, he could be the face of the UFC, the biggest star, if not already. Like there was some criticism from the fans and some media towards the UFC because of the embedded thumbnails on YouTube. Had all it was all Khamzat's face, and it's like, well, what about the champion? You're disrespecting him here, but they're doing that for a reason. You know, the guy just draws a lot of interest. I haven't seen since probably the McGregor days. So many people show up for a press conference. So many people show up for a weigh-in. I mean, the fan interest in this guy is just absolutely massive. And again, he also serves an important area for the UFC, obviously being a Muslim fighter. Dude, I think this guy could be absolutely huge, and he already is. He's a star.
Quick shout out to Billy247 and Steve Williams, always checking in on SBC. Remember, for the next 2.5 months, we'll be going at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Because of Dana White Contender Series weigh-ins, 24 hours before the Tuesday night fights, they do them at 9 a.m., our usual start time, Pacific time. So right after this show will be the weigh-ins. That's why we're starting a little bit early. Otherwise, we'll go back to our normal start time. All right, to all three of you, real quick, you guys did a great job. How long can Chimaev's title reign be? Back to Danny in the 305.
Oh man, this question's so tough. I'll go out there and say that I think his kryptonite's gonna be Fluffy. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Oh, so right away, Fluffy might be up next, or the next one after that.
Yeah, so it matters when he's gonna get that shot. I'll still favor Chimaev, I believe. We'll see if Fluffy gets another fight in between now and then, and maybe if that changes my mind. But out of all the 85ers right now, I do think he's the best. So I'll put it at 3.
3 title defenses?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nolan King, how about you, man? Is this a long run headed our way, or does someone got something for him? Kyle Barallo told R. Mike Bond, you can see that interview on this channel, that he knows he's got something for him, and he's willing to get past the fight in Paris. He ain't that interested in Paris or Imavov, and just fight him in Abu Dhabi in October, if that's what Chimaev wants.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3 as well. I think 3 is a good number. Looking at, because I think that's those are fights that we can kind of plan for, right? Those are going to be all guys that have already kind of emerged. So I think 3 title defenses is a good number. Maybe somebody will come up from the depths of the division and surprise us and become a contender. But it's just so hard in today's day and age for guys to string together multiple title defenses. That's why I'm not erring on the side of more. But 3 is still, a pretty damn dominant reign.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Matt?
I mean, 3 sounds like a good number. I mean, just look at the potentials. Like you said, Fluffy's probably going to be next. After that, it's Imavov or Borjayo. And out of those 2, I think Borjayo wins that fight, and I think he's going to be the toughest test for Chimaev. I think he's going to be a tougher test than Fluffy if it does go Fluffy and then Borjayo, but not to discount Imavov from possibly winning that fight here coming up soon, but I think Borjayo is like the most interesting challenger in the division right now.
Okay. All right, guys. I got a ton of other questions, and we have time. We'll come back. Let's get to the rest of UFC 319 and those results. Spinning back, elbows up plenty. Danny, did Lerone Murphy solidify his nomination for next year's World MMA Awards for Best KO category? That was a big KO, and it might get him a title shot. I saw Volk chirping on Sunday.
Yeah, he's definitely in the running. We'll see what 2025 has in store for us. I know there's been a few good knockouts. Specifically, was it last week or the week before with what's his name? Elijah? Is it Elijah's?
That was a slam, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty nasty too. So yeah, but right now, yeah, he's definitely in the conversations for knockout of the year. And then in terms of getting a title shot, 100%. I think this is what the UFC wanted. That's why we haven't really seen Volkanovski get his next booking. I know he also had some personal things with his daughter's birth. But like the UFC has been waiting for somebody to stand out. That's why Lerone Murphy wasn't given big opportunities. That's why Evloev wasn't given big opportunities. That's why there were talks of Jair potentially fighting for the belt, just because he is exciting, unlike all other those guys, and has statement wins. But that all got thrown away with Lerone Murphy going 360 and landing a nasty elbow in Aaron Pico that shut his lights out. Man, that was brutal. That's exactly what he needed. And undefeated, 9-0 in the UFC, one of the best KOs of the year, if not the best one. He's up next.
Poor Mozart Evloev, man. That injury cost him.
Mhm.
All right. So again, we're a little short on time. It's a great take, Danny, on what might be next there. Nolan, tell me about Aaron Pico. He says that wasn't his last fight yet. We've covered him in Bellator, and I know you have, especially because you were kind of our Bellator guy for quite a while. Your thoughts on what should be next for him other than some time off?
Yeah, I mean, I think that fight was kind of a microcosm of Aaron Pico's career, right? Like that was like just a small reflection of kind of the bigger picture. He looked great, he's throwing some heat. You know, Murphy was backed up at one point. He was covering to shell, you know, kind of to circle out, and then of course, you know, he gets knocked out with a just absolutely devastating fashion. So I was a little surprised the UFC threw him into this matchup. I even said it a few times beforehand. You know, he was on this nice kind of rebuild in PFL and Bellator. He's getting to the point where he's fighting top competition, and to be thrown in against a guy who's likely going to be the next title challenger now, I think was a tough debut. So I'm not willing to write him off yet. His story, his journey has had a lot of downs. He has persevered and seemed to come back better from them. I do obviously have the concern about the damage that he's taken to get here at this point. It seems like we've seen him get really violently knocked out throughout the years. So that's obviously a problem. I don't know how that's something that you fix. But I'm not willing to write him off. You know, give him somebody that's not a Lerone Murphy. Give him somebody that's maybe, you know, towards the bottom of the rankings and see how he does. I think he's shown a lot of improvement since his Bellator days. He was starting to mix everything together really well at the end of his tenure there. So I'm not willing to write him off. I just think that the damage thing's a concern, but let's see how he does against, you know, not the top 5 sort of guys.
Yeah, man, I felt bad for Pico. I thought he had some really good moments, and he was slowly proving I belong. And then all of a sudden, boom. And speaking of boom, Matt, how about Carlos Prates? Nice bounce back fight from the one he lost earlier in the spring against a tough, formidable opponent who's been respected for many years, kind of from your neck of the woods out there in North Dallas. But your thoughts on that fight and Prates' win?
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling this fight was going to end violently one way or the other. Unfortunately, you know, for my guy from Fortis over there, Jeff Neal, was on the receiving end of just a hellacious spinning elbow. I watched I slowed it down and watched it really closely. It looked like Jeff saw it coming, but it looked like he guessed that a kick to the body was coming. If you go back and really slow that replay down, he got his hands up and everything, but he kind of went more to the body. That's the way it looked to me. And then, of course, he got caught with the elbow right upside the head. He took it well, at least by judging by his Instagram post. He tried to make light of it. But, yeah, Carlos Prates is that guy. I mean, outside of that Gary fight, he's just been starching everybody. So got to give him props, man.
Yeah. And how about those leg kicks? I think they were also a nice distraction that led to other openings. You know, he really mastered, you know, knees and elbows, and you could just tell that Neal was a half step behind. And but man, I love it when fighters, you know, they take an L and then they come back like that. You can just tell how much adjustments and being, you know, and accepting your loss and improving from a loss, it can mean so much. Because this guy now called his shot, guys. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He also had a name for us, Leon Edwards. I don't know how likely that is. Leon's kind of all in his little world there, a little snobby sometimes. But MVP says he's willing to step in. Danny, do you like that matchup, Edwards or MVP, if you had any say in the matter?
I like the Edwards matchup better. I think it's appropriate for the next step in Prates' career. I don't like the MVP one just because I feel like on paper it might look like a fun fight, but I just have a feeling it won't play out very fun. But it'd be also interesting to see how Prates figures him out, because obviously a lot of fighters have difficulty fighting MVP. But yeah, I kind of want to see MVP stick at 185. He's having a lot of success there, so why not continue? And I think at this point, dude, Leon Edwards got to fight somebody, right? Because he's taking up a spot in the rankings. He's a former champion, and it's either a fighter or get out, right? But we know that these rankings, like sometimes the fighters can hold on to those numbers for quite some time without fighting. So I really want to see the Prates Edwards fight. Another option that I want to put out there, and I know it wasn't discussed, but Michael Morales, I don't know if you guys saw that, took to Twitter and kind of put his name in the hat as well. It'd be
versus Prates in Brazil.
Yeah, a South American matchup, Ecuador versus Brazil. Why not? I don't hate that one as well. But if I had to pick one, it'd be Prates versus Edwards.
Okay. MVP, Nolan. Okay, so that guy can go welterweight or middleweight. He's kind of clarified that a few times. His options are open. Big win over Jared Cannonier. Kind of styled him on him in the sense that Cannonier couldn't even get close to him until we got to the third round, and then of course, Cannonier won the round. The fight was pretty decided. We knew if he didn't get the finish, it was over. What were your thoughts on the performance? He had a great walkout. The fans were connecting. He had knockdowns in rounds 1 and 2. But he didn't put him away, and we're not hollering about him like we are Prochus, Murphy, and like those were statement wins. He cruised to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was that's kind of what he does, right? So I thought that was one of probably the best UFC performance that he's put on, particularly against who he was going up against. It was the most aggressive I think we've seen him fight in that first and second round, scoring those knockdowns. Obviously, the third round. He had the opportunity to really put a stamp on it, and he was pretty dominated in that round. So I think that was a little bit of a misstep on his part. But I would be surprised if he doesn't stick around at 185. I think the UFC wants him there. I think I even saw John Morgan tweeted that he's not even eligible to be ranked at welterweight anymore. So I think the UFC's kind of, politely nudging him in that direction. And I think he prefers to fight at 170, but we'll see where he competes from here. As far as fighting Carlos Prates in Brazil, I kind of, again, I don't think the UFC is going to go that direction because of the division. I think maybe you might see somebody like a D-Rod in there instead, somebody that they know they can have sign on the dotted line on short notice, and somebody that's available. I don't think Edwards is going to want that fight. I don't think the UFC would necessarily want that as a co-main either. So I don't know. I don't know who Prates is going to get. I just kind of don't feel like it's going to be MVP, and I don't feel like it's going to be Edwards. Sorry to be the party pooper here on all the ideas, but just logistically, I don't think it's going to happen.
No worries, man. Mark England in the chat says MVP entertaining, but a strong grappler ragdolls him. I mean, Cannonier kind of had his way with him in round 3, so I guess I would agree with that. But first round, he couldn't touch him. Anyway, another highlight from UFC 319 as we kind of wrap up that
Danny's
card.
got the finger going.
Oh, okay, Danny, you want to say something on the other topic, or give me both, whatever you got to say, and then another highlight.
MVP versus Israel Adesanya
would be the worst fight ever. I'll finish that sentence for you.
I'll finish
it for you.
A lot of, I don't know.
I could be
that, but there would a lack of engagement, Matt, or what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, we saw Anderson Silva versus Israel Adesanya. It would be that all over again, and even worse.
Danny, any thoughts?
I kind of agree.
I just want to, just F goes for this banner that's playing now. That's all I gotta say.
It's like Danny was in the matchmaker meeting, came out with that matchup, and then all of a sudden Matt poured a Gatorade on him.
Yeah, 100%
on his fight booking. But okay, good stuff there, guys. We don't have to necessarily agree on everything. Give me another highlight, Danny, from UFC 319.
Ooh, I'm gonna highlight Lupe Godinez getting her first win over a former UFC champion, Jessica Andrade. First of all, that was a very good fight. I think I saw the maturity from Lupe. She looked great. That last round was a little dicey. Obviously, she got tagged up a lot, but all in all, I do think she is evolving, and I'm curious to see how far she goes. And man, bummer we didn't get that fight in Noche UFC. I think that would have been a perfect fight for it, getting some big names there in the rankings. But somehow, instead of Lupe Godinez versus Jessica Andrade, we got Cedric Dumas versus Zachary Reese. So I don't know how that one works, but okay.
I heard you say that to Fada in the preview show for UFC 319. I have an answer. Goes and I interviewed her, and we asked her the same question, and she would have been down for it. But Chicago, she wasn't against. They have a big Mexican population there as well. But the sister, remember they showed the sister a lot? I think the two sisters are training for the Canadian wrestling team. She really wanted the sister to be in the corner, and she would not have been able to go to Noche. So when this happened, it was kind of like, okay, I'll take it. But it's not that she didn't want to be on Noche.
No, I think it was more on the matchmakers. Like, but
I loved her hands.
That's fair. That's fair.
I loved her hands, and that overhand right kept connecting. Man, Lupe's improved for sure. Nolan, another highlight from UFC 319.
Yeah, shout out to Lupi Godinez too. She's going to become a Canadian citizen tomorrow after being there for quite a while. So big week for her. Tim Elliott. I mean, talk about a guy that we don't give enough appreciation to, who's been around forever, who has provided a lot of exciting fights. And I would argue that the win on Saturday was one of the biggest of his career in terms of name recognition. I know Kaya Sakura is maybe, he's having a rough go here in the UFC, as is a lot of the bigger name imports that the UFC has brought in over the past year. But it was good to see Tim Elliott kind of in a fight that he was counted out in, go out there and just set up a really beautiful submission and get the tap as the underdog. So shout out to Tim Elliott. It sounds like the UFC, from what Dana White said at the press conference, will be extending his deal as well. He's kind of in that negotiation period that comes before a fighter has the last fight on their deal. So shout out to Tim Elliott, not just for this fight, but maybe we don't give him enough shine, for what he's done over the years as well.
I think he's lucky. He was clowning a lot, and sometimes Dana, if he's not in the right mood, he hates it. Like, it looks like Steven Seagal playing around with Anderson Silva back in the day, just throwing his hands in so many motions, but it paid off for him. And I'm not an Elliott hater, but I know how Dana operates.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think, I don't know. Tim's one of those guys, though. I mean, he throws caution to the wind, right? Like, he's just kind of more puts himself in a bad position to try to get a good one. So I think he's somebody that's maybe got the Dana White privilege at this point.
And he had a great chin, man, because Kaya Sakura landed some good punches. Matt, how about you? Another UFC 319 highlight.
I mean, it's got to be the guy with the biggest rocket in the history of UFC rocket strapped to his back, in Baysangur Susurkayev, if I pronounce that properly, or Jimmy, as Dana calls him.
Nailed it.
Listen, I mean, the guy fought on Tuesday, knocked this guy out in the first round with a nice little body kick. Within 24 hours, he had a fight signed, and it was for Saturday. Flew out to Chicago. They put him on the press conference. Like, I mean, can we talk about like how much they are getting behind this guy just like right out of the gate? It's crazy. And then he goes out there and gets a second round finish, 2 fights in a week, 2 finishes in a week. I mean, and he's only 24 years old, right? Like, the guy is super young, so he can be the guy. He can be the guy in this division for a long time, depending on how quick they want to rush him up the ladder. But I mean, obviously he does show a little bit of greenness to him. Like, he gets clipped a little bit, right? So that's kind of concerning. But I mean, they're behind him, man. They are behind him.
And I'm glad they're taking care of Eric Nolan, because he was just really casted aside, but he represented well for himself. And by the way, Craig in the chat. All right. I'm going to go with Joseph Morales. I love comeback stories, and he got a sub. He was petitioning for the 50 grand right there, but he was so excited to be on there with Joe Rogan. And you could just tell, man, for somebody to pick themselves up after so many years, and then come back and get a win and go through the show and pay their dues. Good for him. Good to see Uriah Faber back out there as well. So at least we got some finality to the Ultimate Fight of the most recent season with Cormier versus Son, and the other fight will be rebooked, I think, at Noche UFC. All right, we got to continue the World Tournament 9 recap here for PFL. So we're going back in time. This was the night before out in, where were they? In Charlotte, I believe. Nolan, how about Gadzi Rabadanov, man? He was up for this year's World MMA Awards Fighter of the Year. I had to go back and go, what? But he had an incredible run leading up to winning the title, cracking some jaws. He's been on quite a run. He's no joke. Big upset for Alfie Davis taking down this lightweight tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the Gadzi Rabadanov bandwagon after the last couple. I thought he looked like somebody the PFL could really promote. Obviously, his ties with the Habib team. And I actually wasn't working this event, but I was at a bar. So you got to realize I watched this with some beer goggles on. But Alfie Davis, man, I thought he, really was impressive. I think he's somebody that has flown really under the radar over the past, few years since he's been developed through the Bellator system. He was somebody that was kind of competing intermittently. He had some losses, but for him to go out there in this moment where it seemed like Rabadanov had all the hype, all the attention, and to go out there and fight the fight that he did, I thought it was the right call. I thought the judges got it right. And ultimately, surprise, they have actually a British champion instead of a Russian one. I don't think many of us were expecting that. I'd have to go back and look at the staff picks, but shout out to Alfie Davis, somebody that's flown, again, very much under the radar over the past, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, man, that was a clutch win for him because Rabadano's been on a great run. How about the run, Matt, that Liz Carmouche is on? You know, she everywhere she's gone, whether it be Strikeforce, UFC, Invicta, she hasn't taken down all the titles, but she does have some straps. She has some money. The longevity too, almost 40 years old, still doing it. Or wait, is she 41? I can't remember, but
Yeah, 41.
Yeah, like just amazing run that she's been on, taking out Jenna Bishop.
Yeah, absolutely. She is. I mean, she's one of the OGs, right? And she just seems like she just keeps getting better. It's crazy. Like the fact that she can still perform at this level with the aggression, you know, the power that she keeps. Like she's just super impressive, man. She even got a shout out during the UFC 319 broadcast from Joe Rogan, which is crazy to hear a PFL fight getting put over on the UFC broadcast. I never thought I'd see the day.
It was just a beautiful finish from an OG, man. That hook was just timely, put her out. And Liz, I think, has always come off well. Like no one really hates her, so I think that was a lot of respect coming from the UFC booth. Now let's talk about World Tournament 10 for the PFL. It's happening on Thursday this week, and this time they're in your neck of the woods. Danny Segura, I believe you're going to get on out there. You recently talked to Dalton Rasta. So tell us about that fight versus Fabian Edwards. That's the main event in the middleweight division. Remember, they're tournaments. It's not regular season and playoffs. They're now capping the tournaments, quarterfinals, semifinals. This is a final here.
Yeah, I like this fight. It's going to be fun. There's some bad blood between the two. Dalton Rasta is kind of the one poking at Fabian, and Fabian's clapping back. So it should be a little heated. We'll see if that translates into a lot of action. I think it should. So I'm excited for that final. And I'm kind of excited to see like how far Dalton Rasta can go, because from what I've heard, he's doing quite well in training, and it almost feels like he's turned a corner mentally, and he's getting a very tough test in Fabian Edwards. So if he wins, man, there's going to be some big fights for him. So yeah, fun fight. Well, let's see what happens. I'm very 50-50 on it.
By the way, he's doing quite well in all facets of his life.
Yeah, he is.
Let's get to the light heavyweight tournament, tournament final. Nolan, all right, Shoeface, remember him from back in the day in the UFC? Respected middleweight, has gone up to light heavyweight. He's won a millie. He's won a belt. He's got Sullivan Colley in front of him in the co-main event.
Yeah, I mean, both guys I think have quietly kind of gone up the ranks here and entered into Antonio Carlos Jr., guy that's been around forever. I think we know what he's going to bring, right? He's got the great submission skills, veteran savvy. And then you got Sullivan Colley, who was, a Bellator, a guy that they signed, I believe, before his pro debut or pretty close to it, a longtime training partner of Ryan Bader. Somebody that was put in a position as Bellator's roster shrank, where he went up against Luke Traynor in a prospect versus prospect matchup. He lost, and I think he kind of exited people's mind. He was quickly knocked out, like, oh, okay, he's not the prospect to watch. Luke Traynor is. And so since that time, I think Colley's done a really good job of developing, maybe when the spotlight's not on him as much, obviously going out there, beating Alex Polizzi and Phil Davis to get to the final. Those are two good names. So it's an interesting fight. I'm not really necessarily sure who's going to win. I believe in the staff picks, I lean towards Antonio Carlos Jr. I think his skill set will be a problem for Colley, but maybe come Thursday, Matt Erickson will be getting an email from me that I'm going to change my pick. I think it's a close one.
I agree. That is a close one. Good finals that the PFL has had this year, and don't forget they're on this week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Plus. These are the last two finals for them. So, Matt, let me just come to you with this. What have you thought of PFL doing tournaments versus regular season and playoffs, because we're now coming to the end? And also, what do you think of, instead of in one night we get 6 finals, now they're up to 8 weight classes and they've staggered it? But what are your thoughts on both of those?
I guess to start, like, I like the fact that PFL has a season or a tournament format. Like, that's their hook. That's what makes them different. That's what makes them stand out. Like, if they just try to do regular matchmaking like the UFC, like, they don't have as interesting of a product. There needs to be some sort of story that you can follow throughout the year. Like, so-and-so beat this guy to advance and go further. Like, they need that hook. And I think that's what's worked well for them over the years. I know some people disagree with that. That's fine. But I think that's what makes them different than the UFC. So they need to keep some sort of, tournament or season format going forward, one way or the other. Yeah, I think they have done a good job with it. Especially, I think the tournament worked out a little bit better. Breaking it up also works out better, so you don't have like one big event that is like seemingly 12 hours long, where it's just 25-minute fight after 25-minute fight, and then you had the pace. Like, yeah, break it all up, put 1 or 2 on each card, and make it more digestible for fans that, you know, literally don't want to sit in front of their screens all day.
Not only that, leftovers, Black Friday, college football. I think the NFL, PFL was kind of ruining that the last few years. So yeah, man, I've kind of been digging this. Plus, I think it's better for them too, because it's just more opportunities for people to talk about their upcoming cards and for them to be featured on ESPN. All right, great job, guys. Let's talk about another fight card that's coming up this weekend. It's UFC Shanghai, a fight night in China, Danny, at an odd start time, but we get our Saturday night back. And guess what? The UFC is not, you know, they didn't shove a bunch of jobbers on the card. It's not bad. The main card's all right. And I want to know, what's your excitement level for this one?
Well, considering that I'm going to have to start working at 3 a.m., and not very high, but when I asked the matchmakers, you know, hey, I love these day cards, I didn't mean this early. But all in all, I think it's a good card. The top 3 fights are fun. I know a lot of sort of regional prospects are on the lower part of the card. You never know what names can kind of stand out from that. But yeah, I think there's some fun fights at the top. I'm really excited to see what Salsa Boy can do with this big test in Sergey Pavlovich. I would say, considering it's a fight night, I would give it and the time kind of does suck. I'll give it a 6.
A 6 out of 10. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I got a little distracted by a comment in the chat. What time is Walker's funeral? Anshul Jubilee's gas station is saying, look, Ming Yang's a beast. He ruined the fight party that they had out in the Midwest for Anthony Smith, but Walker can be destructive too. But that one got me there. We got Walker versus Ming Yang. We have Ortega versus Sterling. Pavlovich against Waldo Acosta Cortez. It's a good one. What is Ming Yang's potential, Nolan King? This is kind of featuring him here.
Yeah, he's legit, man. I think we're looking at a future top contender. I mean, he's already there, right? He's one fight away from getting kind of that marquee, sort of really important. I don't know if I would call it a title eliminator, but something in that vicinity. So this is built around him, right? I mean, we got Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling in the co-main event. This event's pretty much built around Zhang. So this is a big opportunity for him if he can go out there and get it done, which I think he will. Yeah, I think the UFC has the male star from that region that they're looking for.
All right, so Jubilee's gas station says Walker is not going to win. Nolan thinks Ming Yang's going to win. They agree. Danny, how about you? What's your prediction for that main event?
I think it's so clear what the UFC is doing here with Zhang. Yeah, Zhang by knockout. I'd be surprised if it goes over 1.5 rounds.
Walker's found a new home. He's at Extreme Couture. You don't think there might be something there? Eric Nixick leading the way, one of the sharpest minds in the game.
I love Nixick. I'm sure they can teach him a lot of new things and improve his skill set, but that chin, man, I don't think you could do a lot about that chin. He's been knocked out many, many times.
Matt Wells, how about you? Is it unanimous?
Yeah.
Is this the Ming Yang party?
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to the UFC for doing the proper thing here, putting him in the main event, you know, in his home country. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be when you hit the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're doing everything right on that front. I am surprised the betting line is as close as it is. Like, he's only a plus 285. Johnny Walker is on underdog right now, like around that. I thought it'd be much wider than that, but yeah, I expect this to be the 3rd time he gets knocked out in a row.
All right. Staying with you, Matt Wells, let's talk about Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling. What's at stake here, and what's your prediction?
I think it's going to be a fun fight. This is going to be one of those where if somebody goes out there and gets a finish, like we were talking about at the top of the show, right? The featherweight division is kind of like in this state where somebody go out there and raise their hand with a fantastic performance, right? That's what we need, especially with a guy like Ortega, who's hovered around the top 5 for I don't know how many years now, right? So he's kind of like getting in this spot where it's like, okay, what can you do for us now, Ortega? And then same with Aljo, since moving up, he's done all right, but you still need that real statement performance from him. And I think this is that spot for him to do that. So if either guy goes out there and gets a finish, they could be, right up there in that mix. Because you have guys coming up, man, like Gian Silva. Like, I think a lot of people expect him to go out there and get a finish very soon. So it's very much like statement time in the featherweight division. So you're looking for that from one of these two guys here.
Who do you lean towards to win?
I'm leaning Aljo. Aljo. I think he has more capability to grind out the win if he needs to.
Nolan, how about you? What do you think's at stake here? Brian Ortega's lost, I think, 4 or 5 or something like that. Aljo's moved up and he's gone 1-1. The Cater fight was a nice win. The Evlo win was a respected loss. But this guy's used to being champ, and I think he wanted to come up and try and replicate, and he created room for his boy Marab, who's had a ton of success.
Yeah, I think it's an important fight for both guys, right? The division, as Matt said, is kind of at an interesting spot where we started. It seemed like, obviously, the featherweight division, we're always invested in the fights. There's great fighters. They're exciting. But I think we hit a point in the last few months where it seemed like things were kind of dwindling, right? Like Volk had beaten a lot of these guys. Ilya had moved. So the division was kind of stuck. But now we've got these guys that are, kind of bursting up the seams, like, flying up the outside. You got Zalal, you've got Steve Garcia, you've got David Onama down at the bottom, and then you've obviously got Lerone Murphy, you've got Movsar. So the division's super, super healthy right now. And so for one of these guys to kind of emerge as like, hey, I'm established as a top 5, give me a fight that might get me in line for a title shot. I think this is a big fight for both guys. I wish it was 5 rounds. That's the only thing. This is one of those fights where I wouldn't be mad at a 5-round co-main event. But yeah, great fight. I am leaning towards Aljo, and I think it's a really important one for him.
Another big fight on the card, a guy you're familiar with, Danny. You've had him on your show, Hablemos MMA. Waldo Acosta Cortez. He's taking a step up here against Sergey Pavlovich, who was a destroyer up until a few years ago. Your thoughts on this fight and a prediction, please.
I like this fight. Waldo had called out, I believe it was 3 names after his win. He was interested in fighting Volkov, Derek Lewis, and then he mentioned Pavlovich, and then my eyes kind of went wide because I didn't expect that, right? Like, not too many people are running to fight Pavlovich, given his power and how devastating he can be. But he got what he wanted. I think this is a fun fight. I think Waldo has what it takes to beat Pavlovich. I know that power is in favor of Pavlovich, but watching how well Volkov fought and how important that jab was, I do think that Waldo can do something very similar. We saw against Spivak, his jab was on point. This is a guy that's evolving. This is a guy that's taking his career more seriously. He stopped being stupid, and this is on quotes. He literally told me, man, when I started, I was kind of fighting like an asshole and like a dumbass, and I got to stop behaving like an idiot. So there's still that salsita, swag in there, but he's taking his career a lot more seriously. He's got 6 kids to take care after. So yeah, man, I want to see what his sorry?
Waldo's got 6 kids?
Yeah, 6 kids.
He's not even 30 yet, right?
No. Well, I think he might be 30.
Wow.
But yeah, so I want to see how far he can go. I think he's an interesting guy and a guy that's being overlooked right now in the division. We talk about sort of the guys that are rising up. I think a lot of people leave Waldo out of the conversation, but man, he beats Pavlovich. He's a title contender, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right. Give me another highlight from the rest of this card, Nolan, that you might be looking forward to. Like I said, I think they did a pretty decent job considering it's a fight night, and sometimes fight nights aren't that deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one really obvious option. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think this would probably be everybody's pick here is Loner Kavanaugh versus Charles Johnson. I think that's a banger. Loner Kavanaugh might be one of the brightest prospects at 125, and Charles Johnson is a guy that we've seen reinvent himself a few times in the UFC and really establish himself as somebody that could go on some sort of contender run soon. So love the fight. Should definitely, that in my caffeine will be getting me through the morning. I know I'll be on with Danny and Matt Erickson. We'll be knocking this one down in the early AM here, East Coast time. So that will be one of the highlights for me that I'll really wake me up a little bit,
Yeah, and just so you all know, the prelims go down at 3 a.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. Pacific. So this is already officially Saturday on ESPN Plus. The main card starts at 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific. They stay on ESPN Plus throughout. But again, Walker versus Zhang Ming Yang is the main event. I should say Johnny Walker. Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. You got a former champ there in the co-main event, a title challenger as well. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Sergey Pavlovich in the featured bout. I like Kevin Borjas versus Sue Mujari. I'll be honest and transparent. I'm in Peru right now, and I saw Kevin Borjas training. I saw Jesus Pinedo training with him as well, and those guys are really working hard, even though Pinedo didn't win his tournament final. It's not because of a lack of preparation or also sacrificing, because they came to a southern city in Peru where the altitude was high, away from their families, and they put in the work. And I love Borjas' boxing. He's got beautiful hands in the flyweight division. Sue Mujari is a great opponent for him too. So I think this is going to sneak up, and I think this one's got potential for a possible fight of the night. Danny, you got one for us real quick?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Demoledor Michel Pereira. You know, I think he's such a fun fighter to watch. I love his whole shtick, his dances, everything. And he's on a 2-fight losing streak. I want to see how he bounces back. And they gave him Kyle Dawkins. Shouts out to Kyle Dawkins as well for rejoining the UFC. Got cut, and I believe he won like 4 or 5. Won the CFFC title. So, you know, it's always hard to get back in the UFC after being cut. So that's going to be a fun middleweight bout. Excited to see what happens between those two.
Matt Wells, I know you were looking forward to previewing Zhao Long and Su Young Yu, but we're a little short on time. Yeah. So let's just go to the next topic. Highlights from the news cycle from this past week. Matt, what do you got for us, man? We didn't talk too much news here because we had to recap 2 events and preview 2 events. But there was some news this past week.
Yeah, no, I wasn't gonna preview that fight, but I was gonna give a shout out to the rare road to UFC hosting 2 actual UFC fights, which is kind of crazy. But we get Xi Ming, the good doctor out there, ready to knock somebody out. But no, my news note for I guess this week was Dana White just basically coming out again, like doing this thing against John Jones in the public, where he's just like he can't trust him anymore. Like he went pretty hard on him, like in 2 different interviews, like he said on the Jim Rome show. Between him and Conor to show up at the White House event, he trusts Conor more. And then at the post-fight press conference at UFC 319, it was like a 1 in a billion chance like that John Jones would show up for the White House card. So it's like, I don't know what prompted that venom this week, but it's not the first time we've seen Dana kind of do this to John Jones, on the mic publicly. But it is interesting that it came out like that this week, that he's just all of a sudden doesn't have this trust for John Jones after, I don't know if there was some, if he got tipped off to something more with the legal developments going on or what, but yeah, it was that kind of caught my attention this week, that he was just like, you know what, I don't trust John Jones anymore.
Yeah, he was pretty pissed at him. Maybe he thought John Jones was the one spreading the rumor that the Apex is going to go to 15K, but I don't know, man. $1 billion to 1 shot, I think, that he's going to be on the card is what we heard. Danny, how about you, man? The news cycle, what you got?
First of all, just real quick, what a great debate. Like, who do you trust more to headline a card at this point, Conor McGregor or John Jones? Holy crap, that's a debate you can have for an hour.
I think you could throw other things in too. Like, who would you trust more to drive, be your chauffeur? Who would you trust more to, I don't know, we could go on for days.
Yeah. I mean, that is one hell of a topic. But my news highlight is going to be PFL. PFL announced the lightweight championship fight between Usman Nurmagomedov and Paul Hughes, the rematch. It took them forever. I thought this fight was going to happen a lot sooner, but they finally did it. It's one of the best fights they can book. Super excited for this one. And they also brought the GOAT, Artem Lobov, on that card against Subaira Tukugov. A nice grudge match there. Nice throwback from back in the day. So I know we sometimes go hard on PFL, but they do a lot of good work as well. And I think this is one of them. I think this is a fantastic card, and I'm excited for it.
Nolan King, a quick one from you, a news cycle story.
Yeah, Hussein Keita is a UFC fighter. This is super exciting for people that don't know him. He's right now the perfect storm of a personality, a fighter that can get a lot better, and somebody that's already really damn good. So he can fight at 45, he can fight at 55. He's proven himself in Octagon, winning 2 titles, and he's going to debut here in less than a month against Patricio Pitbull, who obviously still has a lot to prove to the UFC as well. So love the signing, love the fight. Love that we're getting it right off the bat, and it should spice up that Paris card a little bit more. So shout out to the UFC for all these great Euro signings recently.
All right. Great job, guys, on this week's SBC. Goes behind the scenes as well. Fist bump to you. Folks, don't forget, Spinning Back Clique every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, at least for the next 2 months, because of the Dana White Contender Series weigh-ins, which are going to start here in about 30 seconds on a separate stream. So check that out. Stay within the channel. Like these videos. It helps us out a ton, growing our subscriber base. And kindly consider subscribing because it's free and we do all the work and we're the best in the business. Yeah, I said it. All right, folks. We'll see you next week on SBC. Go out there and be a champion. Talk to you soon.